So is it dead, or are we going to see another attempt to pass a bill? What do you think?
So I think we can't ever say it's totally dead, because there are always going to be some Republicans that will try to come back at this. But I will say, I think after last week, the Republicans' momentum is really just evaporated, I think, because of just the vote that we saw early Friday morning, where the latest bill went down. And so, as maybe some of our listeners know, there is a proposal from Senator Lindsey Graham and Senator Bill Cassidy, and now I think Senator Dean Heller, to go about this in a different way. But we haven't seen any indication from Senate leadership that they're willing to advance it. So we just have to see.
Yeah. What does Mitch McConnell want? I have the sense that Mitch McConnell, the last thing he wants is continued debate on health care. He'd rather move on to tax reform or, God, anything else, right?
Well, I think, on early Friday morning when the latest legislation went down, he said it's time to move on. I think he means that. And because it's a lot of political capital that's been spent on healthcare so far. I think this has taken way longer than anyone thought, even that the Republicans say that it would take to repeal Obamacare.
Yeah. They were going to do it on day one.
Right. So we're on the verge of it being August, and how much time can they spend on this? I'm sure they want to show that they can get something done, and healthcare right now is not that thing.
Trump won't let it go, though. That's what I find so interesting. I mean, he's still, over the weekend, it was a constant barrage of healthcare tweets from Trump. And so, I mean, it is interesting that I think that his goal is to get rid of or repeal or do away with everything that Barack Obama put into place. And so it's really hard to do that if you don't get rid of Obamacare. And I don't think he understands how to move past it. I don't think he understands how to get rid of it, but he just knows he's got to get rid of it.
Well, one interesting question is whether if your goal, as Donald Trump is, to say, okay, let's not just give up yet, right? That's too early to just give up. If the best way of achieving that is to attack the Republican senators, it doesn't seem to me that that's a very effective way of these are professional, grown men, have a lot more experience in Washington than Donald Trump has.
And women.
And thank you. Yes.
But no, I think, right. I mean, he needs them. So I think attacking senators over the weekend, right, the tweet storm was in full force, raging against Republican senators. And I think that that's not going to be the way to sway them. In fact, last week, part of what we saw some pretty notable strong arm tactics from the administration to try to get Republican senators to vote yes, and they didn't work.
Didn't work, right? I mean, Lisa Murkowski got the whole pressure. We're going to take money away from your parks in Alaska.
Right. The vice president spoke to Senator McCain for probably at least a half hour. It's probably longer than that. The president called Senator John McCain. He still voted no.
Right. And I think there were some threats against Susan Collins. Now, in his speech last week, the first day back, Senator McCain, one of the points that he made was that we should get back to regular order for an issue like this. This is too big to decide just by sort of a little closed door, smoke-filled room kind of way, the way Mitch McConnell had done it. And we played this just before the break. I want to play again Susan Collins making this point yesterday as well, that now this is the opportunity to do maybe what we should have done in the first place.
I've made very clear that I believe we would produce far better legislation if we went through the normal process of having committee hearings, hearing from healthcare providers, from insurance regulators, from advocacy group, from governors, from everyone involved, and then produce bipartisan legislation with input from both Democrats and Republicans.
Now, that I believe is the way to go. But one thing for sure is if you went that way, it would take some time.
It would take time. And also, I think the issue with regular order, we have to remember that both parties have very different goals as to what they want. So Democrats aren't going to work with Republicans until Republicans drop this so-called repeal crusade. Right. So that's one thing. But Republicans can't, as we've talked about, let that go very easily. The base still wants it, and there are Republican senators who very much want to repeal the ACA. But if you go down that road again,
there aren't enough of them, though. There aren't enough of them. They're just going to have to. Those extremists are not going to get their way.
Well, we'll have to see what they have to agree on what their goal is first.
Right.
I think before we get to anything like regular order.
Right.